So here's the scenario. After hours upon hours of grinding your Pokemon, through leveling up, through beating all the 8 gym leaders and defeating the evil organization along the way, you finally make it to the steps of the Elite Four, and therefore the champion. You've trained with your Pokemon for so long and you've struggled with them all throughout your entire journey, and now you finally reached the end of your journey. But at the end of it all, you might ponder, was it really worth it? Well, folks, I'm here to answer that with another tier list. Cue the intro. So this is kind of a follow-up to my last Pokemon video, but this time I'll actually be ranking the Pokemon champions instead. And this has been a thing that I've been really wondering about ever since I made the whole evil organizations video, because if you really think about it, people really do rely on their champions a whole lot. Like in each region, I feel like people think of their Pokemon champions as like their version of All Might. Like, yes, there are police in the games, but I feel like they don't really do anything. The last time the police are even mentioned in Pokemon, I feel like, was Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, where you're working with the actual international police to help take down Team Galactic. And understandably so. If you saw my last video, you will understand why the international police had to get involved with this. So, based on this information, my playthroughs, and my research, I'm going to be ranking all the different champions from Pokemon. And these are all going to be champions from the base game, so no DLC will be included. Now, please do keep in mind, I'm not too sure about IVs and EVs and all that. I'm just a casual Pokemon player. I'm not a professional Nuzlocker in any way, shape, or form. So I'll be taking those out when I put in these different factors. So the main factors I'll be looking for are team composition, the passes that each Pokemon has, as well as their movesets, and fuck it, for a fun factor, why not how threatening each evil organization is for each champion in their region. Plus, for each champion, I'll be looking at their strongest, fullest teams, meaning that these will be Pokemon teams that are a lot stronger than when you first faced them. These will be the rematch teams, as we call them. Honestly, I could probably split this tier list into 2 different tier lists based off the teams and then the other factors that I mentioned. But I feel like the one that's based off the evil organizations are probably going to be the same as, like, I don't know, the last one that I made from that last video. So, now, as a disclaimer, I will say that I still haven't played some of these games yet, but I do have a friend who has his opinions and his own research through his own playthroughs. And also, he's more of like a Nuzlocke nerd, even though he hasn't played a Nuzlocke yet, but he does know very much about new gen stuff, so I'll be asking him a lot for advice on these different opinions that I have. Isaac, you have friends? Yes, I do, so shut the fuck up. So let's hop right into it. Alright, so at the bottom of this list, we're gonna put Pokemon Emerald's champion, Wallace. See, before Emerald, he was actually the 8th gym leader in the Hoenn region when you're playing Pokemon's Ruby and Sapphire. I guess Steven just got tired of Team Aqua and Magma's bullshit and just retired. You see, Wallace specializes in Water-type Pokemon, which in my opinion is very easy to take care of. Just facing Wallace again in the championship battle literally is just 8th Gym 2.0. Not to mention that none of his Pokemon are really that strong either, and their passes are just fucking useless in my opinion. Like, let's take a look at his Milotic for example. It has a really great ability, it has Marvel Scale, which is an ability that basically boosts the defense of the Pokemon by 50% if it's been affected by a status element. So if it's stunned, or if it's poisoned, or if it's frozen or burned, it gets a great defense boost. But you can literally just one-shot it. You can just one-shot it before you can even affect the status element. Just use a grass-type move, or use an electric-type move. Just use anything, and it'll just die. Like, I don't think I can really talk about any of his other Pokemon, because they're just not that great at all. They're really not. Like, overall, I think Wallace was just a very disappointing champion, in my opinion. Like, he just doesn't really do much for you. He's just a literal XP grinder before you go into the post-game and face off against Steven, like the actual champion. Now, if we're going to talk about facing off against the team, does he really do anything against Team Aqua and Magma? Absolutely the fuck not. He literally just shows up at the end when you've already resolved the conflict to look pretty, and he goes, "Wow, great job, trainer," and then just fucks off in the middle of nowhere. Now, next up on the tier list is Geeta. Now, I haven't really played Scarlet and Violet yet, I haven't bought it, nor do I really intend to. But this is why I have that friend, who I shall not name for his privacy, who brings me his opinion on it. So according to him, apparently Geeta has no team composition whatsoever. It just feels like she mashed together a bunch of high-level Pokemon and then decided, fuck it, we ball. And I feel like it really does make sense to me. When I looked at her team, none of the passives really worked out, and also the team just didn't really feel all that powerful either. But I will say that Geeta does a lot better than Wallace already by having at least a diverse team, with different typings at least. And I guess a variety of movesets as well. Like, her Chestnut comes with Bulletproof, so I can't really say much about it because Chestnut can only have Bulletproof from what I'm seeing, but I just feel like a lot of the other ones just don't make sense to me at all. Not to mention that 2 of her Pokemon are monotypes, and I feel like in this age of Pokemon, there's a lot of dual type Pokemon out there, so honestly having a monotype doesn't really help your case a lot either. If you look at her team here, literally you can wipe out half of her team with a fire type Pokemon or a fire type move. That doesn't really seem that hard to me. Now, as for the lore dump about her, when it comes to the affairs of Team Star, she just doesn't give a fuck. She literally just travels around the entire region recruiting new gym leaders and new members for the Elite Four, but that seems to be it. She just seems to be, I don't know, like improving her LinkedIn resume here at this point. And for other lore stuff, it feels like she was the cause of the problem, or she was like the reason why this happened for Area Zero. Like, there's not a whole lot from what I've seen about it, but a lot of people are very suspicious of her being one of the main factors of Area Zero. So not only is she useless, but she basically causes problems, I feel like. So fuck it, you know, I guess she deserves this very low ranking in my opinion. She just doesn't seem to be very useful to her region, her people, to anyone else in general. She just seems like a throwaway plot point at this part of the game. I don't know. I'm so bewildered right now. I can't formulate words. So now we're going to move on to the Kalos region with X and Y's champion, Diantha. Now, I've heard a lot of things about Diantha, especially how easy it is to beat her. Like, a lot of people are saying, like, it's so easy to beat her that you can't even listen through half of her banger theme music, too. Like, I think it's a banger theme music for champion battles. So for Diantha, I'm gonna rank her based on the team that you play against when you first face her, because afterwards, from what I've seen, you don't fight a full team of 6 from her. So as of now, overall I see a big improvement from Geeta at least, because Diantha has only 1 monotype Pokemon in her team. But afterwards, she's still pretty shit either way. Like, I'm looking at her passives from her Pokemon, and they don't really seem to like match at all. Like, they don't really seem that useful to me. For example here, you see Goodra that has Sap Sipper, which is an ability that increases the Pokemon's attack power when it's hit by a Grass-type move. But here's the thing, why the fuck would you hit a Goodra, which is a Dragon-type Pokemon, with a Grass-type move, just one-shot of another Dragon-type, Ice-type, or Fairy-type move? Just fucking end it right there, you don't have to do any other bullshit like that. Like, okay, let's take a look at another Pokemon in her team. Let's look at her Gourgeist. Her Gourgeist has the ability Pickup, which is an ability that picks up a one-time use item, such as berries, after it's been used by the opposing Pokemon. But I feel like a lot of casual players don't even put items on their teams, and if they do, it's more of like a permanent item rather than a one-time use item. So, like, that ability is fucking useless in my opinion. Also, I feel like Leftovers is a better item to use if you're gonna use a healing item. That's just my opinion, I'm no professional, but I like using Leftovers, so I don't know. You know what, let's take a look at another one of her Pokemon, Tyrantrum. Her Tyrantrum has the ability Strong Jaw, which is a move that increases the power of biting moves. But it only has 1 biting move! 1! Like, I feel like, yes, Diantha has tried to put in some effort in building her team, but she just does it so fucking poorly, and I can see why people have been able to breeze past her really easily. And as for dealing with the affairs of Team Flare, as far as I'm concerned, she has done nothing with that kind of shit. She just shows up to look pretty. I know that she's an actor in the Pokemon series, and I feel like the reason why she's such a shit champion is because she has to act like one rather than actually be one. So for anyone who's a Diantha fan, I'm so sorry, but I think she is still a shit champion overall, so she is being at 3rd lowest right now for me. Now let's step one region back into black and white with Alder. Now if we look at his team immediately, I know some people are going to say, Isaac, you fucking hypocrite, there's 4 monotypes in this team and you said that's a big no-no. So first point that I'm going to make here is that Alder is the first Pokemon champion in this tier list that we're going to see that has a pseudo-legendary on his team. Now for those of you who don't know, pseudo-legendary Pokemon are Pokemon that require a lot of time, training, and dedication to get them to their final evolution. But in exchange, you get very powerful stats from these Pokemon. Some pseudo-legendaries include Garchomp and Tyranitar, so, you know, you should know that those are very strong overall. Not to mention that his ace, Volcarona, has a very powerful moveset overall. It has moves like Bug Buzz and Hyper Beam, and if it manages to keep stacking Quiver Dance on itself, well, you're fucked. Like, you're gonna get steamrolled then. Like, overall, I feel like his team has very decent stats and movesets that could make him a little bit of a challenge when it comes to fighting him. Now, I believe where he begins his downfall is his typing. Alder has Bug-type Pokemon and specializes in it, but he does have a Vanillix in there, which is an Ice-type. So as some of you may know, Bug types and Ice types have one thing in common. They're very weak to Fire type moves and Pokemon. So you could easily sweep 2/3 of his team if you have a single Fire type on your team. And when it comes to dealing with Team Flare, apparently he really just doesn't do much with them, he just leaves it to the youngins because he's old. I mean, imagine being old, am I right? What a boomer. Now let's step back into Gen 4, where we're going to look at Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver's champion, Lance. Now, to me, Lance wasn't particularly a hard fight when you first challenge him, especially when he has his
3 inappropriately leveled Dragonite.
But when it comes to his rematch, Lance does get quite a buff, I will admit. But he's still a fake Dragon Master. Like, when you first face off against him, he uses only Gen 1 and 2 Pokemon. But in Gens 1 and 2, there are 4 Dragon-type Pokemon, 3 of them belonging to the same evolutionary line. But I don't know, like, if you're gonna call yourself a Dragon Master, can't you at least have the final evolutions of the 2 dragons that are available in the game? Don't be fucking fake and say, I have 3 Dragonites, so therefore I am the Dragon Master. Anyway, I'm getting off topic, so let's just move on to his rematch team. So his rematch team does have Pokemon from other generations, mainly because this is after you've beaten all 16 gym leaders and you've beaten the Elite Four twice, so now you're gonna get it to his rematch. So if you look at his rematch, he now has 4 unique Dragon-type Pokemon, which is a much needed improvement from his fake-ass Dragon Master team. And some of these Dragon Pokemon are pretty decent, they're pretty powerful overall, I would say. But he just equips them very poorly with shit moveless and shit passives too. Now, according to my friend, he does say that Altaria is not that great of a Dragon-type Pokemon, it's in fact carried by its Dragon-type as a flying type, but still, you know, I feel like Lance's Altaria could have been a lot better. But as a counterpoint, a lot of people, including me, have some PTSD when it comes to Winona, who is the flying type gym leader in the Hoenn region. Her Altaria can be fucking scary because it spams Dragon Dance and it can just one-shot your entire team. So why the fuck does Lance not have that on his Altaria? His Altaria is fucking stupid, it's useless. Like, also, 2 of his Pokemon have the move Intimidate, which cuts your Pokemon's attack stats down. But if you're gonna hit it with an Ice-type move, then, like, hit it with a special attack Ice-type move. Like, I'm pretty sure most people are gonna use, like, Ice Beam or Blizzard on his Dragon-type Pokemon, so it just doesn't fucking matter, because those are special attack moves, not fucking normal attack moves. Now, his Garchomp is a huge disappointment, especially when we're gonna compare it to another certain champions out there. Like, I feel like Lance just decided to look at other Dragon Master champions and just, like, see what kind of Dragon types that they have and just made, like, poor imitations of it. Like, you know that meme where people say, oh, can I copy your homework? Like, yeah, just don't copy it straight up, right? Like, I feel like that's what Lance has done with his new Dragon team. Like, I'd say the main concerns with Lance is his last Dragonite that managed to, like, stay in the pack, and his Charizard, because they have pretty good movesets and pretty good passives. But that's it. Like, the other concern you would have is that he's a cheating motherfucker who just keeps spamming
Full restores!
But yeah, sure, I'll give him credit for also helping out with Team Rocket, but this is a very weakened version of Team Rocket, especially since a certain somebody soloed it all on his own, so I think he's just not that competent of a champion, in my opinion. So now that we've cleared out those weak and easy champions to deal with, we can actually move on to some competent trainers now. So now I'm going to talk about Pokemon Leaf Green and Fire Red's champion, Blue. Now within these games, Blue is actually your rival. You've been childhood friends apparently, and you just keep competing against him as you continue on through your Pokemon journey. If you're competent enough, you will just keep beating him all the time. And within the entirety of the series, he's the first rival to become the champion of the Pokemon League. But also, this is Gen 1, so, you know, I guess that makes sense, because it's the first Pokemon game that was ever made. Well, this was the remake of the first Pokemon game that was ever made, so, like, yeah. I mean, like, if you technically really think about it, this is actually a Gen 3 game, because this is the Game Boy Advance series of the games, so honestly, I mean, it is still a remake of Gen 1, but fuck it. So after you beat Blue's ass and he whines like a little bitch, we are introduced to the Sevii Islands. I think that's how you pronounce it, at least. And in these islands, we are now allowed to catch Gen 2 Pokemon. Maybe Gen 3, I'm not sure, I haven't played this game in a while, but I think there was like one part where you could get a Gen 3 Pokemon. So when you rematch Blue after you unlock these islands, his team gets a significant upgrade. Now keep in mind, Blue does also have one Pokemon that does change, and it depends on the player's choice of starter. And also because Blue's a scheming little motherfucker and he just decides to pick the starter that's more effective against your own. But for the sake of continuity and lore, we'll have his starter be Squirtle because Red also canonically picks Charmander for his starter. Now for his rematch team, Blue does pick some ridiculously powerful Pokemon for Gen 1/2 game. Like, not only does he have powerful starter Pokemon, but he also has the likes of Alakazam, Tyranitar, and Heracross. And these Pokemon were some of the most powerful Pokemon within the Gen 1 and 2 games. Not only that, but his Pokemon also have some very powerful moves overall. Like his Heracross has Mega Horn, his Tyranitar has Aerial Ace, Earthquake, Thunder, Blastoise also has Earthquake for some reason, but it also has Hydro Pump and Ice Beam. Like, these are some really strong moves from these generations. Now, I'm not really sure how good passes were when it comes to these games, but he is a lot more challenging than when you first fight him. But for the sake of the fairness against other champions, we will take a look at one of his passives, I guess. So let's take a look at his Heracross. Heracross has the ability Swarm, which is an ability that increases the power of bug-type moves by 50%. Now his Mega Horn has 120 base power, which is really fucking strong. But because he has Swarm, it now has a base power of 180. Like, that's insane for this region. Now, if we're gonna factor in the whole Team Rocket situation going on in Kanto, he does try to help out a lot. Or, well, not really help out, but like, he's trying to prove that he's better than you by trying to one-up you throughout the entire game. And when you deal with Team Rocket, he is a little late to the party at times, but at least he's trying. And, you know, the fact that he became champion before you did kinda does show that he has a good amount of skill. So if anything, he did a lot more than Lance did. And canonically speaking, he did beat Lance before he retired, so, you know, I think he goes above Lance in this list. So let's move forward on to Gen 4/Gen 2, I guess, back into Heart Gold and Soul Silver with the true champion, Red. Now before I move on to the point where I feel like I don't really need to explain a whole lot, I will mention that Red is actually the player character from the Kanto region games. And in order to go up against him in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, you have to beat all 16 gyms, then you have to beat the Elite Four again, and then you have to kick Lance's ass again, and then you go up and challenge him on Mount Silver. And you may be asking, well, why is Lance the champion? Why isn't Red the actual champion then? Here's the thing, Lance didn't beat Red. Like, I'll make that very clear, Lance didn't beat Red. The main reason why Red decided to just not be champion anymore is a very cold reason. It's because no one was good enough to challenge him anymore. If we look at his team too, it's unbelievable. Like, Red is what Ash could have become if he wasn't such a fucking dumbass. Like, this man starts the fight off very strong. He has a level 88 Pikachu that holds the item Light Ball. Light Ball is an item that I believe only works on Pikachu, and it raises its attack and special attack stats. Like, his Pikachu is already fast and like strong enough, but the fact that he decides to make him even stronger, like, shows how brutal this motherfucker is. Like, not only that, he has the 3 fully evolved Kanto starters on his team, with some of the most powerful moves of their respective types at that point in the series. Like, his Venusaur has Frenzy Plant, his Charizard has Blast Burn, his Blastoise has Hydro Cannon, not Pump. He has heavy hitter slash tanks like Lapras and Snorlax. Like, it's insane what he has on this team. Like, look at his Snorlax. It has moves like Blizzard and Giga Impact. Like, these are really powerful moves for those types. Like, I don't understand how Red does this. Like, Red just doesn't fuck around. There's definitely a reason why he just doesn't say anything to you. He literally just goes, and that's it. Like, that's how the battle starts. And even if you beat him, like, he doesn't say anything either. Like, he doesn't need fighting words. He just has the skills to prove it. Like, there's also a reason why people call the Champions theme Red's theme rather than Lance theme. Red is just that good. And since we're going to talk about teams too, even if Red isn't your player character at this point in the game, he still canonically took down Team Rocket single-handedly, which shows his skills are that good either way. Like, he has a huge resume overall, so there's no doubt into how good Red is in the Pokemon Champions tier list. So, I don't know, man, like, Red is one of the GOATs, so you gotta give him a lot of credit. Now, according to my friend, this next take of mine is going to be a little bit controversial, but in my opinion, I think the next champion above Red is going to be Iris from Black 2 and White 2. Now, Iris is the actual real Dragon Master of the Pokemon world. Like, forget about bitches like Lance and Claire. They're fake. They don't really know what Dragon types are. Like, Iris stands out when it comes to Dragon Trainers, and she definitely has the skills to prove it too. Like, fucking, she overthrew Alder and then decided to take the champion title for herself. Like, that's canonically stated in the games too. You see, in Black and White, she was actually a gym leader before becoming champion. But there's a clear difference in skill between her and Wallace. Like, I think Wallace just got promoted to champion because fuck it, whatever. But Iris actually beat Alder. So, like, there's already a huge skill gap between her and Wallace already, even though they came from, like, almost the same position. So Iris' strongest team comes from when you rematch her in challenge mode. And it's a really strong team overall. Like, it has an average level of 81, and they all come equipped with some powerful items and passives. Except for maybe, like, her Archeops and Lapras. Those may need some work. Cause her Lapras comes equipped with Water Absorb, which basically makes water type moves not effective against it at all. In fact, it heals Lapras when you hit it with water type move. But why the fuck would you hit a water type Pokemon with a water type move? Like, please help me make sense of that. And Archeops is just a fucking pussy. Like, when it gets at a low enough health, it just loses a lot of its stats, so like, but if we look past that though, her 3 very powerful Dragon-type Pokemon have very powerful moves too, like Draco Meteor, Fire Blast, and Earthquake. Like, hell, her ace Haxorus has the one-shot move Guillotine. And I know that one-shot moves are, like, typically really hard to land, but if you do get hit by that, if you're that unlucky, just good luck. I'd say just restart the game or just put down the game in general. Her other Pokemon are pretty good too. Like, Aggron and Lapras are decent tanks with very good moves, like Autotomize and Blizzard. And although Salamence has a Life Orb, which hurts its user in exchange for more power moves, it has a lot of powerful moves too. If you truly don't carefully prepare or plan for her team, or you're just going in blind, like, I really say you're in for a bad time. And when it comes to dealing with Team Plasma, she actually does help the trainer quite a bit in tracking them down, and I believe she also helps them take them down at some point, or at least fight some people with the trainer. So if anything, she does her job as a champion very efficiently and very well, so she's a pretty good fucking champion in my opinion. Alright, now let's take another step back into Gen 3 with Hoenn's true, real champion, Steven. Steven Stone is the definition of class and riz when it comes to Pokemon. I mean, look at this dude. He's got the suit, the looks, the title, the brains. He's got it all going for him. And Steven's battling style and team composition suits him very well. Like, his team is full of Pokemon that have very good setup moves and defensive passives. Like, you have Skarmory and Claydol with Toxic, Spike, Reflect, and Light Screen. You also have his Aggron with Sturdy and moves like Earthquake and Dragon Claw. Now you're probably thinking, Steven specializes in Steel and Rock type Pokemon, so just fucking spam Ground type moves on him, dumbass. Well, it's not that fucking simple. You're the dumbass for thinking this. Like, why else would he be near the top of this list? Like, his Skarmory is a Steel and Flying type Pokemon, which means it's unaffected by Ground type moves. Sturdy's ability has changed starting from Gen 5, which buffed it so that Pokemon with that ability can no longer be one-shot. His Carbink is a Fairy-type Pokemon, which is one of the most broken typings in the game ever since it came out. Not to mention that you can barely put status effects or debuffs on his Pokemon because of their typings or the ability Clear Body. Steven's Ace's Metagross is also on an entirely different level. Not only is it tanky and a heavy hitter, but it can also Mega Evolve. And it also has powerful moves like Meteor Mash and Giga Impact. So if you're not careful enough, this Metagross can easily solo your entire team, especially in its Mega form. Like when going up against Team Dumbfucks. Teams Aqua and Magma, excuse me. He does help the trainer a lot. He also goes into a multi-battle with you to stop their plans. And when it comes to Oras, he does, give a lot of guidance too, which is a huge help and a big plus in my opinion. So going back into more modern games, we're going to be going into Sword and Shield's champion and esports cap master, Leon. So I will go and say this, Leon is more of a Dragon Master than Lance is, and he's not even claiming himself to be a Dragon Trainer at all. Now Leon is actually smart, unlike his brother Hop. And I know that's not that big of an achievement, but, he's still pretty smart. That's where a lot of the smart genetics went to in that family. Like, literally at the beginning of the game, Hop, being the dumb fuck that he is, decides to choose the starter that's weak to you, and then when you beat his ass, he's surprised that you even beat him in the first place. He's like, whoa, type matchings? Wow! It's not like I've played all these games for a bit. Now, Leon, on the other hand, he chooses the starter that's strong against yours. Well, I guess that's also because that starter is the last one that's left behind, but still, either way, he knows about the type advantages and stuff. He's the champion for a reason. Now, I'm not so sure too much, I haven't looked too deep into it, but this also means that he became the champion without even a full team. He literally beat the entirety of the Pokemon League with 5 Pokemon. Typically champions have a full team of 6 when you face off against them. So the fact that he decided to go out and beat the entire world of Pokemon in his region with only 5? That's a huge achievement in my opinion. Now the team I'm going to be using for this video is the team that he uses when you face him in the champion battle, mainly because that's the only time we really see him with 6 Pokemon. Also within his team, his starter Pokemon is going to be Inteleon because I chose Scorbunny when I played this game, so that's the team I'm going to be using. Now Leon has some strong Pokemon in his team, like Aegislash and Haxorus, and they also have a wide variety of movesets with different typings overall. Now you would think at a first glance that it's pretty easy to take care of these Pokemon individually, but if you really look carefully at these movesets, some of these moves have been put in there to counter those counter typings. Moves like Iron Tail and Flamethrower, they counter Ice-type Pokemon, while Aegislash has Sacred Sword to counter Dark-type moves. So Leon is a lot smarter and skilled than he seems. Not to mention the fact that if we look into the story mode, he was able to hold off a legendary Pokemon by himself, waiting for the trainer to come in as backup. During the end of Sword and Shield, the main villain, Elon Musk, decides to summon Eternatus, which is a legendary Pokemon prophesied to bring about the Darkest Day. The fact that we see that he's the only champion so far that we see holding off a legendary Pokemon by himself definitely puts him very high on this list. The only downside I can really see on his team are the passes that he put on his Pokemon, but they just feel like normal passes rather than really shitty ones. But overall, I feel like if you aren't really prepared for his battle, you could be in for a really challenging time. Now we're left with one champion left to put into this tier list. Someone whose name instills fear into the hearts of Pokemon players all over the world. You know her, you simp for her, and you fear her. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, at the top of this list we are putting Sinnoh's one and only champion, Cynthia. Like, there's a reason why Cynthia's never really memed. Like, the only memes that you really see about her is that either people fear her that much, or it's the whole, why do I hear piano music in the background? Kind of meme, you know?
Wait, uh-oh. Is that piano I hear? Oh my god.
So when the original Gen 4 games came out, so Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, a lot of people were struggling with just her opening Pokemon, Spiritomb. Spiritomb is a fucking legendary Pokemon who had a dark and ghost typing. Like back then, so this was before fairy types were even in the game at all, back then this meant that Spiritomb virtually had no weaknesses whatsoever. It was resistant to a lot of different types of moves. So the only thing you could ask for was, it was just effective, you know? It was just a normally effective move. But with Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, we already had fairy types in the game at this point, so Spiritomb became a little bit more manageable for players. But may I remind you that that's just the opening act of her set list. Like, the rest of her team is fucking stacked. So following the rule of using the strongest full teams available to each champion, we're going to be looking at her rematch team after Stark Mountain in the remakes. Now already there's a huge difference between her and the rest of the champions on this list. All of her Pokemon not only have an average level of about 85, but they also have incredible passes and hold items. Every single one of her Pokemon is holding a fucking item dedicated to fucking the player over and making sure your chance of victory is as slim as possible. Her Togekiss has the ability Serene Grace, which is quite literally the best ability you can put on it. And Serene Grace is an ability that doubles the chance of a move having an additional effect. Like for example, her Air Slash is a move that has a 30% chance to flinch its target. With Serene Grace, now this flinch is increased to 60%. So good luck even trying to hit the damn thing. Her Milotic has the ability Marvel Scale, which I've said earlier in the video that it doubles the Pokemon's defense when a status effect has been applied to it. Now you would probably think that it just won't hit it with a status effect move, dumbass. Listen here, smartass. That's not gonna fucking work against her, because Cynthia's already made a plan for that kind of situation. Like if you look here, Cynthia puts a fucking Flame Orb on it, which is an item that intentionally burns the Pokemon holding it. So good luck trying to one-shot this tank. Like what else is there? Her Lucario is a glass cannon that can't be one-shot because of its Focus Sash. Her Porygon Z is such a broken Pokemon that, in fact, it's been banned from official Pokemon tournaments worldwide. And these are all Pokemon before you even get to her ace, Garchomp. Now again, most people would probably think, Garchomp is a ground and dragon type Pokemon, so ice type move should easily one-shot it, right? It's 4 times as effective. Wrong! It holds a fucking Yacha Berry, which halves the damage it would take from a super effective ice type move. Not to mention that it also has a Swords Dance, which will absolutely obliterate you if you let it stack up. Like, Cynthia's literally thought of everything when she's fighting the trainer. And when it comes to dealing with Team Galactic, which I remind you from my last video is the most threatening team within the entirety of the Pokemon universe, she actively does help out the trainer here and there. Like, she offers a lot of information and help to the character, especially since she gives you a Lucario, of all things, at the beginning of the game, and also just gives you a lot of lore and also how to deal with a lot of these things. Like, with no doubt, I feel like she's definitely not gonna need to step in because she knows that she's prepared you enough to go up against Team Galactic. I feel like she would definitely step in if she knows that you're about to fuck this shit up. Like, just fuck up completely, you just die, and you lose to Team Galactic somehow. On a side note, Cynthia also gives you a fucking jump scare when you decide to enter the wrong house in Pokemon Black and White. Like, in this version, she decides to add an Electros to her team, which is an electric type Pokemon with the Levitate ability, meaning ground type moves don't do shit to this thing. And again, fairy types weren't a thing at this point in time in the Pokemon series. Like, this means she practically had 2 fucking invincible Pokemon in a region where she's not even the champion. Like, holy shit, I'm gonna cry. I'm sorry, I had to, repress that trauma once more, especially because I started hearing a lot of beeping, like the low health beep sounds in my head, so, yeah. Now I know this has been a very long video, especially compared to the last one I made about Pokemon, and for those of you who have made it to the end, I'm very, very grateful that you decide to, stick to the end and just constantly hear me yapping about this shit. Like, I really truly mean it, and I truly appreciate it. Like, I really did spend a lot of time going into the research for this video, looking into the teams, weighing out their pros and cons based off my experiences and my friends' knowledge as well. So, I really did spend a lot of time on this video. Like, I know this was a lot more nerdy than I thought it would be, and there was a lot to write and a lot of repressed trauma that I had to bring out. But at the end of the day, please know that this is my personal opinion based off my experiences and how I understand the Pokemon games, so, you know, please take it with a grain of salt as well, I guess. And if you're a Nuzlocke looking at this, don't expect any good information. Like, I'm a casual player and I made this for casual people just to be somewhat funny, I guess. I think I'm funny. And it's for people who just have too much free time and just decide, hey, look, a Pokemon video, and just click on it, which I really appreciate, again, by the way. But once again though, if you made it throughout this entire video, thank you so much for listening to me rant about it, and I know it took a lot of time, so I hope you have a great day, and I guess I'll see you next time?